Hey everyone, just a heads up that this episode contains lengthy discussions about mental health, depression, and suicide. And if you're uncomfortable talking about those issues with your kids or the students in your classroom or the players on your team, we have age-appropriate discussion guides linked in the description of this episode. You can click on the link and there you'll find the discussion guides. And that's the case with any of our episodes, to talk through the topics that are encountered each and every time.
Line up.
Oh yeah, I should get my tape.
No, bro.
Can you make it healthy so that doesn't look like garbage? What's my name? Why don't you do it with your goal? Mr. Johnson, wake up! You're even in my class. Macho, you're up, man! What? Hurry up here! Ivan, you're next. Macho! Ready for the Macho, you're up next! You got it. Macho, you're up! Macho! You're up! It's your turn! We're waiting for you! Stand on the line.
Look at me.
Kadar, you're up next. Step forward, Macho.
Step forward. There you go. Perfect. I'm gonna have you turn the ball so I can see the Nike sign on it. Yeah, like that. Perfect. One more.
Varsity, we're gonna do our team photo.
Yeah. So we're doing one row kneeling, one row sitting, and one row standing.
Yep.
So kneelers are gonna be on both knees.
Yep, both knees.
There you go.
All the way down.
Unless you want to be up front.
We're gonna squish together, front row knees squish together. No, like slide them back. There you go, like that. See how he's doing it? And everybody in the front row is gonna have to sit really tall. So you guys are slouching. There you go. Yeah. Well, one with no couches and then one with coaches. On the end, I'm gonna have everybody ready? Yes, that'd be great. We're all serious. All right. 1, 2, 3.
The fall colors in Pelican Rapids and the surrounding areas are on full display, and there is great excitement as the team moves on from a trying period of injuries. But on Monday, the brilliance of colors won't be enjoyed by the players because for the first time all season, there is poor weather for practice. The week in front of the team is significant. It is homecoming. In any other year, homecoming barely registers for the soccer team because, like in any small town, normally homecoming is built entirely around the school's football program.
Every homecoming football, they're the ones that host it all the time. Friday nights, they have their homecoming game.
Yeah, like homecoming, like before, I would just be like, oh, it's whatever.
We work hard every day, like in practice, play good in games, like really good. It's like nobody even cares.
But this year is different. As the pandemic has flipped the norm of fall sports on its head, the football team is still waiting to hear if the Minnesota State High School League will grant them a season. Earlier in the year, Student Council Advisor Abby Mooney brought a bold proposition to the administrative team at the high school.
So I met with Mr. Korf before school started, and we kind of were brainstorming how we could make homecoming feel as normal as possible given the current circumstances. Football was kind of up in the air at this point. We didn't know if we were going to have a football season. If we did, what it would look like. Would we even have a homecoming game? My executive board, a lot of them, they're all seniors except for one. They just wanted to have a successful homecoming their senior year, and they were excited that they would be able to still have that sports element to their homecoming week when a lot of schools around here weren't able to do that.
With soccer being started here in the fall, it really helped our student body, our community, a place for them to go and watch an event and be together and cheer and celebrate.
It just kind of all fell into place really nicely. It was a perfect setup.
That the Vikings will be playing Hillcrest Lutheran Academy in the homecoming game makes for an interesting matchup. Just 6 years ago, the two high schools were partners in a cooperative agreement that led to one of the most dominant teams in northern Minnesota. The co-op was called West Ottertail United.
Back in those early days, again, the Hillcrest team was a powerhouse. You had a combination of the Hillcrest players that were primarily Caucasian. Then they had an exchange program, and they still do with a few schools in Norway.
We even had a couple students from Brazil. So we had a mix of everything. We
had the partnership with Pelican Rapids that really infused the program with Mexican Americans, Somali Americans.
And then we had Koreans. So we had a mix of every culture that you can think of there.
And those first, I should say, 10 years, Hillcrest was unstoppable.
I think it was kind of cool and neat in a way, because you learn about, you get to know people from different cultures, different ideas, different styles for playing soccer.
I have a lot of respect for Rod and Nate Jensen. They were very good to our players. They always treated our players very well.
But in the late spring of 2015, the board of directors at Hillcrest made a decision that the partnership as it was would be broken. That the Vikings could continue in the partnership, but only under the condition that Pelican Rapids would no longer be recognized by name. Pelican Rapids Athletic Director Derek Nelson saw this as an opportunity for the school to start a soccer program of their own. And the Viking ship set sail on a new course for their school and community.
It was really the beauty and the push that we needed as a community to invest here.
Our soccer team feels part of the Pelican Rapids school. That community and the pride that they have wearing Pelican Rapids soccer stuff around is very evident with our students.
I think here having our own team in Pelican is amazing, and saying I play my own hometown and going to state, it's a big deal, and we're really proud of.
They're just very much a part of the school and feel more part of our school rather than a soccer team that was basically outside the school.
6 years after the partnership dissolved, the homecoming weekend is built around a match against the Comets.
You like the new job?
It's the best, bro, being back.
I know.
Show.
Show.
This feels good, though.
Playing, right?
Feels good to be back, man.
Last week, Captain Lico Pedroza returned to practice and looks probable to return in the homecoming match. On top of that, Sebastian Rosiles and Josh Urbano both returned today for light training for the first time. There is growing optimism that all three will play in the next match. The team receives more good news the next day when a neurologist meets with Kadar Ibrahim and gives him the green light to resume training and competition. After practice that night, head coach John Peter heads up Highway 59 to watch Detroit Lakes and East Grand Forks. The two teams are tied for first place in the Lakes to Prairie Conference, while the Vikings have a game in hand and will play both teams next week. Macho and Kadar Aden meet JP at the game, and there is deep discussion throughout the night as to how the Vikings can defeat these two teams. 6 years ago, when Derek Nelson was in search of a head coach for the new soccer program, he raised a lot of eyebrows in the community by hiring the school's cross-country coach to lead the team.
It was hard for me to understand somebody who hasn't played the game at a competitive level being a coach. It was a little baffling to me.
At the moment, I'm living in Minneapolis. I get a call from a cousin of mine and says, "Hey, did you know that Pelican's going to have their own team? Do you know who's going to be coach? It's going to be John Peter." And at the time, I'm thinking, John Peter, the cross-country runner?
But Nelson knew Peter had a vision and a plan for the program, as well as a growing passion for the sport.
Mr. Peter came to me and we talked about saying that we need to look at what we need to do to start our own soccer program. And 2 weeks later, Pelican Rapids received a letter from Hillcrest saying they wanted to split the agreement, and that kind of got the ball rolling. I went to Mr. Peter and said, "Here we go."
But what was interesting is when I interviewed Peter and asked him some questions about it, it seemed so simple. He just said, "Well, I know how to coach," because he coaches cross country and some track, I believe too. And his answer was sort of matter-of-factly, "Well, you know, the thing is, I know how to coach kids. It's just a matter of learning the game."
But JP's knowledge of the game in those early years was lacking, and it left a lot of questions, even within the team.
When the program first started, JP was, I want to say he was just down, very down, and he didn't know what he was doing. I was like, what is this guy doing? Like, what is he doing here?
An unceasing desire to learn and improve steadily helped the coach hone his own style as well as improve the team. That and his unwavering belief in analytics.
Nobody that I personally know pulls in so much data and so much analytics into his coaching in the way that Coach Peter does. And you know what, at the end of the day, most people think it's really weird. He takes this analytical approach to practice, to injury prevention, body management, and as well as game day situational play. Whatever they're doing, there's going to be some kind of data that comes along and goes along with it. And it makes people uncomfortable because different is uncomfortable.
Coach John Peter approached me and said, "Hey, any help you can give me, that would be great." The first time I showed up to the pitch to help him kind of coach, all of a sudden this guy has literally this curriculum and it's running patterns of which I've played in college. And I'm thinking, I thought this guy didn't know anything about soccer.
Él es un buen entrenador y ya sabe mucho de táctica y todo. Se ve que tiene mucho, se ve que es muy profesional y pues de hecho creo que sabe más de soccer que yo.
From being, what is this guy doing here, from like being a winning team, and so he made a lot of progress.
Pues es algo impresionante encontrarte a una persona como él que es muy apasionado al soccer. Y eso es lo que me hace feliz que haya conocido a una persona así como yo, que le apasione mucho el deporte, porque hay muchas personas que nomás lo juegan por diversión, pero no lo apasionan el deporte.
Normal is not a word I think anybody uses to describe Coach Peter's approach to anything that he's coaching.
Yeah, so I would say that John's definitely wired a little bit differently from the average person. So this is a sort of drive, I think, that went perhaps a little bit beyond the norm.
I remember one time waking up and it was like winter break. It's like 5 in the morning and this guy's sending me this text about, just working on reading through this other like athletic development book and how I'm gonna put this into my practice plans. I'm like, whoa, dude, like, did you go to sleep last night?
He sends me texts in the middle of winter telling me that he is studying the philosophy and all these tactical points.
Sometimes you think like, when are you finding the time, dude? Like, how are you pulling all these things together?
At the end of last year's 2019 season, he was recognized by the coaches in Section 8 for his improvements as he was voted the Section 8A Coach of the Year. But with all his improvements and the team's increasing prosperity, postseason success had eluded Peter and the Vikings. And last year's defeat against Alexandria in the quarterfinal has haunted him for the past 11 months.
I don't know how else to explain it, but like I went into this mode of like, I have to solve this problem with this team. I have to make us better. Everything was just about correcting our path and getting us back on the right path for the 2020 season.
Another person in the squad trying to correct his recent trajectory is Muhammad Ahmed.
Moved there like my 5th grade year. That was probably around 2015, I'd say. That's the first time I ever seen winter. It was really cold coming here, you know. And then I started school. I didn't know what to do, honestly. I was like, I didn't know they had lockers for school. I didn't know anything. I wasn't used to that in Africa.
6 years after arriving, Ahmed has settled into a familiar life, and soccer is at the center of his day-to-day. Last year, Ahmed was second on the team with 10 goals scored, but this year he has struggled to produce the same quality. Most notably, in the previous game, Ahmed missed a late penalty as he tried to get back into the flow scoring goals. Ahmed has only found the net 3 times this season.
Muhammad, you gotta be better!
Hillcrest game where I missed the penalty, you know, I could have got like, I think I would have went up to 4 or 5 goals that game, you know. Then coming back from that game, I was like, oh, I'm really low on goals. I need to step up, you know, if I wanna improve.
Watching practice this week, it appears that Ahmed is getting back his confidence and may be on the verge of a breakthrough.
Celebration! Oh, buddy! You got that. I know I got that. You know you got that, man.
As the week progresses, everything appears to be clicking back into a state of normalcy, but there is a sudden absence at practice.
So we show up to practice one day and we're all like, where's JP?
We just get a text saying, hey, I went home, it's not COVID related, I'll see you guys soon. And honestly, we're all like, you know, what happened to him?
And everybody was like, you know, what are we gonna do? What's going on, you know?
Estuvo bastante raro porque creo que estos partidos eran importantes los que venían.
He's never missed a practice. He's always been there, like since the program started. He's never missed like a day in his life.
We were thinking what's going on. Like, does he have the COVID, or like, is he not gonna come to our next game? It was just action. We were getting nervous, like what we're gonna do next.
So that morning, I was walking into school and I felt terrible. My heart was racing and my chest hurt really bad. And as I was walking up the stairs to my classroom, I started to pass out. And it's September 2020 and your chest hurts and you feel terrible, and so you're thinking like, well, maybe I have COVID. And so I decided that I should probably go and see the school nurse and talk to her about what was going on.
And I remember JP walking in my office that morning, sitting down and saying to me, I really don't think that I have COVID, but I really don't know.
The night before, I had slept for like 12 hours. But prior to that night, it had been about 3 weeks since I had slept. I had gone 3 weeks without sleeping, basically. And on top of that, the whole week before that, I had basically stopped eating. And the reason that I had kind of stopped sleeping and stopped eating was because I felt like I was on this crazy wave of energy. That like I didn't need to sleep and I didn't need to eat any food because like I just had so much energy. And I was so incredibly productive during that time and I got so much stuff done, and all of a sudden now everything was just falling apart and going wrong.
And starting to talk about how his symptoms were, how fatigued he was, how emotionally he just wasn't with it.
At the end of this half hour of talking with me, she looked at me and said, like, 100% you don't have COVID. But I need you to leave right now, and I need you to go see your doctor. And you're going to talk to your doctor about depression and anxiety and start having conversations about mental health.
You know what? Now is the time. Now is the time to get, help.
In walks JP. He's a hot mess, he's sick. Tells me that the school nurse is the one who sent him in. And it became more and more apparent that this isn't necessarily a physical illness and that there was more of a mental illness going on here that could have been underlining for who knows how long. And it's definitely something that needs treatment, just as much treatment, if not more, than something like Lyme's disease, COVID, mono, any blood dyscrasias, anything like that.
Sarah spent a lot of time talking with me, just getting to know who I was and getting to know what was going on. And Sarah helped get me on some medication that would help me, but also really immediately would help me sleep, because that's what I needed. And told me to rest, and I basically went home and slept for 2 days.
But for the team's head coach, the admission to a doctor's office for anxiety and depression turns on a light to what the bigger problem is.
So a day or two later, my sister called me, and my sister's a primary care physician out in Michigan, and she was alarmed. And she was like, you told him that there's bipolar in our family, right? You told him about that Grandpa was bipolar, and that in our family history, there's quite a bit of bipolar actually. And I said, no, like, why would I need to tell them that there was bipolar in our family? Like, what does that matter?
My grandfather worked both as a full-time high school principal and a full-time dairy farmer. Later, I learned that my grandfather had high-functioning bipolar disease, and in fact, his 3 siblings had high-functioning bipolar disease, and likely his mother had high-functioning bipolar disease.
And I was just like, Beth, I'm not bipolar. Like, I know that I love Grandpa, and he's like one of my heroes, and I love his work ethic, and I look up to him and everything, but I'm not bipolar. And she was really honest with me, and she just said, you have a lot of behavior patterns in your life that are not normal, and you think they're normal, but they're not. And you think everybody around you is really lazy, but they're not. They're normal, and you have some things going on that are not normal, and you need to get some help. And if they put you on medicine for anxiety and you are actually bipolar, like, we're going to have a problem here in a little bit. So you need to call your doctor, and you need to tell her about all this family history you have.
On the recommendation of his family and his care team, JP seeks more help. And a month after the season finishes, years of outlier behavior and erratic health will finally be explained as he, like many others in his family tree, will be diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
In America, I think we, as a society, have some biases when we hear the words bipolar. I think we tend to picture in our mind someone who's homeless and has such extreme mood swings that they simply cannot function in daily life, when in reality, there are a number of highly productive individuals who suffer from high-functioning bipolar disease, where they will have periods of extremely high creativity and productivity during their manic phases, and then times where they struggle to get out of bed and do life.
So throughout my 30s, I've had these massive swings of high energy and creativity and productivity, usually followed by weeks and sometimes months of feeling terrible physically and not feeling like I wanted to do much of anything. And this past year, I experienced like 3 massive swings.
These are not people that you would necessarily label as having extreme psychiatric illness, and yet their brain has this chemistry that allows for times where they hardly need any sleep, punctuated by other times where it is really difficult to function.
They crash. like JP, he goes and sleeps for a few days, wakes up, and he does okay.
The problem with bipolar is that you come off of this peak, this massive amount of energy, and you got to go down, and you head down into the valley. And for me, this past year, every time I went down, it got worse and worse. Forever in my family, we have been pretty open about talking about mental health. But one thing I never understood was how someone could arrive at the decision of suicide being a good idea, or how you could get to that point. And yet, in the middle of the best soccer season I've ever had, with an amazing job that I love the people I work with, I love the administration that I work for, I have an amazing wife who is patient and kind and wonderful, and I have these 5 beautiful children. And in the midst of all of that, the day of the Hillcrest away game, as I'm coming off this massive high, I sit down for my school picture, and the guy says, "Smile," and I thought, there's nothing in the world worth smiling about right now. I don't have anything to be happy about. And I remember a couple days later hearing someone talk about suicide in a story, and giving the idea some real thought, and thinking like, this is interesting. And at the time it felt like very normal thinking. And I realize now, talking about it, like I was down a pretty deep hole. But I was also really worried sitting down for that picture that morning, that if I didn't smile, if I showed how I really felt in that picture, that people around me would realize something was wrong. And I didn't want anybody to realize that, because then they might see me, they might see something's wrong. And so I thought of like the happiest moments I've ever had with my kids. And I got this school picture that looks fairly normal, but I was completely a mess.
We are at a time in 2020 when we know more than ever about how to treat this disease in a way that continues to allow people to be high functioning. Perhaps not as high functioning as in that supermanic state, but also to learn how to really do the basics of self-care.
Bipolar is also why I'm the coach and the teacher and the person that I am. Like, you don't get the curriculum or the video series or my problem-solving ability where I'll stay up through the night figuring something out. You don't get any of that without this. And so it's more been about learning to manage it. Why am I being so transparent? Why am I bearing my brokenness for whoever wants to watch this? We have a mental health problem in this country. And more specifically, we have a mental health problem with men in this country that we have a mental health problem in this country and nobody wants to talk about it.
People talk a lot about a mental health crisis that we're currently going through, and I certainly think that that's a reasonable way to describe it.
People don't want to be associated with mental illness because that means there's something wrong with you. You're not normal. Well, shocker, no one's normal. None of us are normal.
There still exists a stigma surrounding mental illness. I think that it's improving to some degree, but it's certainly still there, where people are very reluctant to talk about their mental health struggles.
I've had people really close to me tell me that I shouldn't talk to my kids about what happened this fall until they're in their 20s. And I've had other people that I know that I start to tell them what went on, and they just stop me and say, actually, you don't have to tell me about that. And then we have a country full of people who are experiencing similar type problems with depression and anxiety, and they're afraid that if they talk about this with whomever, everybody's going to see their brokenness, and that everybody's going to maybe think that they're weak or that they're not who we thought that they were. And so everybody keeps carrying around this piece of brokenness with them And there's so many around that can help. And there's so many who already carry these scars that would love to be a bridge to help.
I mean, I don't know the last time I've gone a day at clinic where I haven't seen a patient with a mental health illness on their chart. It's very common.
Struggling with mental health is a really common problem, and it's something that impacts everything that goes on in your life, whether it's your productivity at work, or how well you're learning in school, or your performance in sports, or the ability to maintain, deep and meaningful relationships with your friends and family around you.
I mean, there are some guys on this team who it is likely, statistically speaking, that they will struggle with mental health as they get older. They might even be struggling with it now. It doesn't mean they're bipolar, and actually probably a good chance that they're not bipolar, but there's a good chance that some of them will struggle with depression or anxiety, and they need to know that it's okay to go get help, and that it's okay to talk to your family about this and to go to the doctor, and the doctor's not going to make fun of you or tell you you're weak or tell you to toughen up. They're going to help you out, and there's all kinds of people throughout our country and throughout our culture that are trained and willing to help people in this situation.
Men in particular struggle with this because as a society we've tended to treat feelings as something that are to be tolerated or pushed down, to be ignored. You need to quit feeling sorry for yourself and get on with your day and get your work taken care of.
Every single one of my closest friends, when I said, hey, this happened and I had this crash and now I'm going to get help, they celebrated that I was finally going to go get some real help because they had seen this was a problem.
If you have questions or concerns about someone that's close to you or someone that you care about, let them know, hey, I'm concerned about you. I see these behaviors. It looks like you've been pretty stressed for the last few days. Are you taking care of yourself? I think you should go get checked out.
It's really important that people go get help for their mental health when they're going through a struggle.
It's easy to think that that's not me, that can't happen to me, but in reality it's something that's very, very real and is in most homes across the country. So being willing to accept that as a diagnosis, being willing to accept the help and be willing to accept those around you are all huge things that we can do.
So this interview is taking place in early April, and it has been so good to get help and to begin balancing things out in my life and to realize the negative effects that this had had on my life for years and the effect it had been having on my family and my kids, and to now see the positives of getting help.
While JP begins receiving treatment and rests at home, Coach Johnson, as well as volunteer assistant Coach Rudy Martinez, handle the coaching duties for the team.
Coach Rudy and Coach Johnson, they were there to help us out through things, and it was our responsibility to get through practice every day and to get through the drills and to make sure everyone's working hard. And even though he's not there, we still gotta represent our team and do what we do.
But during our practices, it wasn't the same because JP wasn't there to tell us what's right, and Coach Johnson and Rudy just told us what we have to do, not what's right.
Lo hicimos todo bastante bien, pero sí faltó un poquito de ayuda como para hablar sobre los entrenamientos y de cómo movernos y todo eso.
Because we had a couple of good games in front of us, and the coach was gone, and everybody was like, we just gotta do this by ourselves and just work harder, and we can do this.
But then realizing, that we gotta go. We have a game in a couple of days, so we have to sharpen up.
We had to do it on our own. Everyone had to do their own thing.
The whole team knew the patterns, and we did them really well every day in practice, for most of the practice, and just keeping each other focused was gonna play a big role in that.
They were at that same level where they knew, okay, we're not gonna have JP in our ear yelling at us today. We have to be our own JP's voice in our ear right now.
We were a team, one family. We all needed each other, even though sometimes we needed JP more. We all were there for each other. We helped each other, and we were one team.
And as the week progresses to Friday, the homecoming week culminates with a community parade and an outdoor pep rally.
The decision by the student council to have a homecoming parade. There was a lot of things that we couldn't do that would be normal in the school day.
In the past, we've had a tailgate celebration before the homecoming game, usually that Friday night. But obviously when I was thinking about it, I was like, this is not a good idea. Obviously we're not gonna be able to gather in crowds before the game, but how can we still have that community element? Because I always thought that was a really important part of the homecoming festivities. So I was trying to brainstorm ideas, and honestly I was looking back on my own high school experience, and we always had a homecoming parade, and I was thinking that could be a really cool way where still socially distanced, but get the community out and get that school spirit pumping throughout the entire community.
I thought the parade going through town and bringing the community together to celebrate what homecoming is all about, your hometown, was a awesome idea.
The homecoming parade, it was just all about not just us, but also the girls' soccer team. I mean, that was just pretty fun just to see not just the whole school, but like our whole community see that it's not just one sports team.
Yeah, it was pretty sick, I should say. Like, we never had that much attention for us, ever.
It was very exciting to know like you have supporters that are all over the town, and like wherever you walk, the people are cheering you on and telling you to do a good job in homecoming.
I want to thank everyone for their support this year. Thank Ms. Mooney and the student council for making homecoming happen, and we're gonna get the #1 seed in the section. Hopefully play in the finals for section and win it.
I think there can only be like 250 people outside, but just looking at all the people that were there was way, way more than 250.
It really showed how diverse we were as a community, because everybody was there, from the Somalis to the Hispanics to the whites to everybody. Like, everybody was there, and it was just cool because, like, I mean, everybody got along with each other. It just really shows what Pelican Rapids is.
The football guys are there, the volleyball girls are there, soccer girls are there, you know, parents, you know, people from Hillcrest.
And a lot of people, a lot of them, they already graduated, or some of them already played in the team, you know. See them cheering on the sidelines.
There was even people just in their cars, like around the whole Brownsfield. Everybody used the whole Brownsfield property for that game. There was just a bunch of people there.
JP returns to the team for the first time and will be on the bench, but in a reserved capacity as he continues to recover. As co-captain, Kadar Ibrahim leads the Vikings onto the field. There is one other conversation going on within the team.
I was talking to Jesus and Danny, and they were like, how many goals are you going to score tonight? Or like, oh, you missed that penalty. You better score a lot of goals. And I remember I'd say, I'm going to score at least a hat trick tonight. If I don't, I'd be pretty disappointed.
Unlike 1 week ago, Hillcrest is not parking the bus. They have come after the Vikings, and just 2 minutes into the match, the home crowd and the home team are stunned. Hillcrest intercepts a pass, and as they score, Vikings goalkeeper Chris Abarca is clattered into and will be unable to return. Now, Sebastian Rosiles will indeed return today, but not as a defender as was the plan. He will be the goalkeeper for the Vikings.
I had to step in as the goalie, and I was totally not expecting that. I was expecting to play second half defender just for a little bit, but obviously I went into the goal as a backup goalie, and I was all like, there's no way I'm playing here. I just wasn't expecting that. It was crazy.
But it's just one mistake, all right? I know it's home crowd, right? They're gonna be on you now. You gotta get past that, all right? 2 great chances down here. Just gotta keep doing that, all right? You gotta keep doing that. Then we gotta close the ball down better. Take over in net for us.
Almost immediately, Rosales is tested.
Keep going, do something now!
The hometown crowd is restless, and the Vikings are rattled, struggling to find the rhythm they expected in today's game as the visiting crowd pours on the Hillcrest spirit. The recently struggling Muhammad Ahmed finally releases the growing tension, and for Ahmed, the afternoon is just starting.
Good control, man. That's what I need. Go, 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 go. Come on. Go. Take it.
So every time he would score, me and he would be like, what the heck? He's actually going hard.
He scored the second goal again, and then he's like, oh, another one. We need one more, and then.
Hat trick.
I remember scoring that header, and it's like, oh, we just need one more now, and I remember that before the game saying that I'm gonna score a hat trick and telling a lot of my Somali friends who were watching the game.
King Kadar wants in on the action, and the rout is on. The game ends 9-1, and one thing is crystal clear. This is home to the Vikings, a place where everyone is important and celebrated, where everyone is themselves and everyone is valued, no matter their background or their brokenness.
I mean, what does home mean? I've lived in Pelican since 1991. I have been an ardent lover and promoter of this town and this school basically since I've lived here. But it was that day at homecoming that I looked across the field and saw this huge, diverse crowd full of so many people that I love and care about, and in turn care about me as well, and realized like this is home, where all these diverse people can be together and we can have all these different beliefs and different cultural styles, and we can get along and we can see each other in our brokenness and look at each other and say, it's okay. Like, I still care about you and we're gonna get through this together.
Next week on We Are From Pelican, The regular season comes to a dramatic end as the team fights to win their first ever conference title.
Struggling with mental health is real, and getting help is important. It doesn't mean that you're a failure or that you're weak. If you need help talking through a problem, or you're interested in learning more about long-term mental health resources, or you would like to learn about mental health treatment options, you can call 211 from anywhere in the United States to talk to a real live person who can help. 211 calls are confidential. They can be made anonymously, and they are available in 180 different languages upon request. You can also get help by calling the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at the number listed. But whatever it is that you do, please seek the help that you need, because you are not alone in this fight.